I never thought the day would come when I would feel completely betrayed by my own daughter. I had always believed that family meant trust, love, and loyalty, but that illusion shattered the day I got the call from my real estate agent. "Someone sold your house," the agent said, and I froze. My heart stopped for a moment and I couldn't breathe. "Sold my house, without my permission?" I asked, but the words barely came out. It didn't make sense. I was the owner of that house, the place where my children grew up, the place that held every memory of laughter, birthday parties, and quiet evenings. How could anyone, especially my own daughter, sell it without telling me? The more I thought about it, the more the shock turned into anger. How could she betray me like this? Had I raised her wrong, or had she always been capable of this kind of deceit? But anger alone isn't enough. I knew I had to act, and yet I also had to be smart. I couldn't let emotions cloud my judgment. That house was mine, and I intended to make sure that what was taken from me was returned, but not in the way anyone would expect. For years, I had trusted my daughter completely. I helped her through school, supported her career, and even let her borrow money when she was struggling. I never imagined she would turn that trust into a weapon against me. I remember the days she played in the garden, laughing as I watched from the kitchen window. We had shared so many moments in that home. Every corner held a memory: her first bike ride, the countless school projects taped to the fridge, family dinners filled with chatter. And now, all of that was gone in a single phone call. As the reality sank in, I had to face a painful truth: she had betrayed me, but I couldn't just confront her blindly. If I did, she might cover her tracks or make the situation worse. No, I needed a plan. A way to reclaim what was rightfully mine, but quietly, carefully, strategically. I began observing, paying attention to her habits, the way she managed her finances, and the way she spoke about the house to others. The more I listened, the more I realized she hadn't anticipated one thing. I wasn't just angry, I was determined. It all came to light gradually. My daughter had secretly listed the house online, used forged signatures, and finalized a deal with a buyer who had no idea they were participating in fraud. I felt a wave of disbelief. She didn't just cross a line, she erased it entirely. I called her that night. "Why would you do this?" I asked, my voice shaking, barely containing the hurt. Her answer stunned me. "I needed the money, I thought you'd understand." Understand? I couldn't. My own daughter, who had shared my life and love for so long, thought it was acceptable to betray me for money. Every word she spoke felt like a knife twisting in my chest. And yet, beneath the anger, a cold resolve started forming. I realized revenge, in its truest form, wasn't about anger, it was about reclaiming control. And reclaiming control I would. But it had to be done without exposing my feelings. I had to remain invisible, silent, watching, waiting for the perfect moment. I knew that confronting her directly could backfire. She might deny everything, manipulate the situation, or worse, sell the house again. No, I had to play a different game. One that required patience, intelligence, and a touch of subtle cunning. I spent days researching legal loopholes, speaking with experts, and learning every detail about how the house was transferred. It wasn't easy. The paperwork was complex, and the buyer seemed genuine, unaware of the deception. But that only made my mission more intriguing. Every night, I imagined how it would feel to see the look on her face when she realized I had reclaimed what was taken. But I reminded myself, this wasn't about humiliation, it was about justice. I wanted her to understand that betrayal comes with consequences, even when it's family. Step by step, I created a plan that no one would see coming. I would become the anonymous force that turned her actions against her, a shadow in the background, silently correcting the wrong. The plan required patience and precision. First, I created an anonymous identity to approach the sale. I researched the buyer, ensured that they were genuinely interested, and quietly positioned myself as the alternative without revealing who I was. Every message, every call, every document I handled was calculated. I had to appear as a neutral third party, someone unrelated to the family conflict, but with the power to reclaim the house. Meanwhile, I observed my daughter's reactions. She boasted to friends, confident that no one knew her secret. She had no idea that the person about to outmaneuver her was closer than she thought. I couldn't help but feel a strange satisfaction. Not revenge born from anger, but revenge born from cleverness. Days turned into a week, and every interaction brought me closer to the climax of my plan. I could feel my pulse quicken each time I saw a text from the buyer or received a legal update. The tension was unbearable, but I reminded myself to stay calm. Any mistake now could ruin everything. My daughter, oblivious, continued living as if nothing had happened. She joked about her cleverness, how she had outsmarted everyone, and how I would never know. I listened silently, each word fueling my determination. And then, the moment of truth arrived. The final contract needed a signature. The house was within reach literally and metaphorically. One signature, one simple act, and the house would be mine again. I signed the contract anonymously. The house, the memories, the symbol of betrayal, it all returned to me without a single confrontation. My daughter had no idea who had outmaneuvered her. When she eventually found out, the shock on her face was unforgettable. I didn't have to say much. The look in her eyes spoke volumes: confusion, disbelief, regret. She realized too late that betrayal never goes unnoticed, especially by someone who refuses to be a victim. I watched quietly as she processed the consequences of her actions. There was no yelling, no dramatic confrontation. Just the quiet, undeniable truth. The house was back where it belonged, and justice, in its subtle, elegant form, had been served. Sitting in my reclaimed house, I felt a mixture of emotions. Relief, yes, satisfaction, certainly, but also sadness. Sadness that a relationship with my daughter had been so deeply fractured, that trust had been broken in a way that might never fully heal. Yet I also understood something important. Betrayal teaches lessons that anger cannot. I had learned patience, strategy, and the power of staying calm in the face of deception. My daughter had learned too, but through the consequences of her choices rather than my anger. Sometimes, justice doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes, it simply needs to be precise, quiet, and undeniable. If there's one thing this experience taught me, it's that trust is fragile, but patience and intelligence are powerful. Betrayal can shake the foundations of any relationship, but revenge doesn't have to destroy, it can restore balance. I don't want to glorify manipulation or deceit. What I hope to share is this: when faced with betrayal, think carefully, act wisely, and remember that justice doesn't always need a dramatic confrontation. It can be as simple as reclaiming what is rightfully yours while maintaining your dignity. And for anyone watching this, remember, the choices you make with those you love matter more than you think. Trust is precious, but integrity is priceless. My house is back in my hands, my memories intact, and a painful lesson embedded in my heart. I still love my daughter, even though I'm hurt, even though trust is now fragile. But I also know that life has a way of balancing itself, and sometimes the quietest actions speak the loudest truths. Betrayal may happen, even from those closest to you. But how you respond defines who you are. In my story, patience, careful planning, and self-control became my allies. And in the end, I learned that reclaiming what was lost is not just about property. It's about dignity, respect, and the subtle power of justice.